You have to promise me something.
What?
You have to promise me.
What do I have to promise you?
You have to promise me we won't spend the entire first episode talking about the ice cutting scene.
We could talk a lot about the ice cutting scene.
We could talk for hours about the ice cutting scene. Okay. Hi, friends. Welcome back to Not Again, the podcast that brings college-level analysis to preschool-level content. I'm one of your hosts, Rebecca.
I'm your other host, Alan.
Welcome back. You were gone.
I was gone, yes.
You looked at me like I was crazy, but...
Well, I thought you were talking to our dear listeners.
Oh, yeah. Welcome back, dear listeners, but also welcome back, Alan.
Yeah. I had a little hiatus while Martin talked about Brave.
Yeah. They had some insights that we thought were important, and you were able to watch the kids while I recorded, so it was nice of you to do that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no problem.
So today we are going to be talking about Frozen. By now, I've already announced it on Twitter, so very excited about that. But before we do, it's a little bit belated, but... Thank you to Adam Pranica and Ben Harrison of The Greatest Generation and others podcasts for the amazing Jumbotron. I know we paid you for it, but it's still awesome that that Max Fun offers this service, and it just meant so much to us. And if you're listening because you heard our ad spot on Greatest Generation, thank you. We definitely forgot to tell you to start with an episode that was not episode 1. And so if you started with episode 1 and you're still listening, thank you.
Yeah, well, I'd like to think we got a little bit better as time goes on with doing this. That was our first try.
Yes, it was. And if you can't tell, we are trying for the first time to record from a soundproofed studio space. And by soundproof studio space, I mean a walk-in closet that I put some soundproofing on. So, let us know if this sounds better or if you want us to go back to our office, I guess. So, for the first time ever, I'm going to remember to say these words. Spoiler alert for the entire movie Frozen. And one other thing that I need to let you know is that while I have a couple things in my notes that mention what they do in Frozen 2, we are going to attempt to kill the author, but instead of killing the author, we're going to kill the sequel.
We're going to pretend Frozen 2 really doesn't exist because I didn't like it.
Right. We didn't like it. There's a couple of reasons. We didn't like it. Also, this movie existed in isolation for a long time, and so therefore should be analyzed in isolation. And also... I have a new patrons-only podcast called Bex 2, the sequel, where I will be talking about Frozen 2, and so I don't want to do that twice, basically. Quick ad plug, this is available to all patrons, including the $1 a month French fry level. That's $1 a month, and you get to support us. You get to hear me talk briefly about sequels, just kind of analyzing them, where they went right, where they went wrong. Hopefully they went right. Not always. The first episode is already out. I talked about The Incredibles 2. Spoiler alert, I did not like that movie. And that's been enough preamble. So thank you, Greatest Generation. Thank you, Ben and Adam. We are going to now start talking about Frozen. I also am going to summarize the plot really quickly for those who haven't seen it, but maybe you've heard Let It Go and you're just like, that does not sound like my jam. Frozen is about two princesses who, one of whom, Elsa, has ice powers of mysterious origins. And the other one, her younger sister, Anna, does not. Elsa gets some good advice from a troll and bad advice from her father and ends up isolating herself for years and not telling anyone about her powers until a big blow up at a party reveals her powers to everyone, and her sister Anna goes on a quest. She runs away, and her sister Anna goes on a quest to find her, bring her back, and let her know that she is loved. Also, to raise the stakes, she has accidentally made it winter everywhere, so of course Elsa has to come back to fix things. There are villains, spoiler alerts all around. As always, I have taken notes. Alan has not seen these notes, so we are going to go by this point by point, not as a plot summary, but as an analysis. And we're going to get Alan's raw reaction to the things that I have written, as well as mine, because you guys must know by now that I usually forget half the stuff I write. The ice cutting scene.
Are we going to pass through all the hey nas at the very beginning?
Yes, we're going to skip past the hey nas at the very beginning. Because honestly, that would just bring us up to talking about the sequel and how they tried to shoehorn in an explanation of the hey nas at the beginning. So instead, we're going to go to the super serious ice cutting song, used only to foreshadow the Frozen Heart bit, because the Frozen Heart is part of like Beware the Frozen Heart.
Beware the Frozen Heart.
And now we're Not Again the musical.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of, they're singing seriously about cutting ice, but that's that's all they're doing. So it's a little weird for them to be like, we're cutting ice.
Yeah.
It's so, anyway.
Yeah, we've joked about it. We are cutting ice because we are cutting ice.
Yes, and I think that's the Honest Trailers.
Oh, maybe.
Maybe
I lifted that.
If you haven't heard of it, Honest Trailers is a YouTube channel that does honest trailers for movies, and you should look up the one for Frozen. It is pretty accurate. We're going to try not to quote it too much. One thing about just kind of continuity is the saw. I watched this over and over again. I'm 98% sure I'm correct. The saws. We get a pretty cool shot at the beginning of the saw coming down, like we're underwater, comes down through the ice. And then we see more saws joining that first one, and they are crisscrossed. So every other saw is going in one direction and every other saw is going the other direction.
Because that looks cool.
And then they cut to an overhead shot, and instead they have 3 saws on the left side going one direction and 3 saws on the right side going the other direction. So they didn't do continuity good there.
We Are Cutting Ice is what I'm going to call the song, is a list of ice's properties, mostly, some metaphorical, some physical. And I just want to point out that the people who wrote this song won an Oscar for the music in this movie. And some songs are very good, and this one I don't believe is very good.
No, it's
conceptually. Musically, it's probably fine.
Well, I have a note here that just like the line "beautiful, powerful, dangerous, cold," and I feel so bad for that poor fourth dude who couldn't think of a fourth thing to say about ice.
He couldn't think of a fourth thing about ice.
So he's just like, "It's cold, you know," and we're like, "Yeah, dude, we do know."
Yeah. I don't know.
It's cold. It's slippery. It's frozen water.
It's mostly clear.
You're cutting it. I don't know about. I mean, beautiful, okay. Powerful, sure. Dangerous can be, yeah.
I mean, you slip on it.
I will say ice water is probably more like if you I'm talking about like a frozen lake. If you fall through, it's not the ice that's dangerous at that point. It's the water.
It's the cold water.
So they're singing about this beautiful, dangerous, powerful, cold ice, and we get an introduction to Kristoff and Sven. Kristoff is I'm spoiling everything, right? Kristoff is the genuine love interest in this movie, and Sven is his reindeer. They make a lot of inappropriate jokes about his relationship with the reindeer. It's weird.
Yes. There's baby reindeer is very cute.
Yes. And he has gross habits like sharing carrots with the reindeer. And my first thought is, it's not that these ice cutters don't acknowledge him, not in the way that they're okay with him being there. It's like in a way that they don't notice he's there. Do you get that impression?
Yeah.
It's like Kristoff's a ghost.
Yeah, he has his own tiny ice toboggan and his own reindeer to carry the ice.
Exactly. Like they leave him behind later. They all pack up on their sleds and go. And then Kristoff just like goes his own way.
These people are sociopaths. There's a frozen child and they're not just like, here, get on the sled, man. Like,
yeah, exactly. It's almost like they don't know who he is or where he came from or even notice he's there. It's cute that Kristoff is doing his own little ice cutting thing, but it's weird that we don't know who he belongs to. Later to Anna, he even says he grew up alone with Sven and no one to take care of him. But so why was he with those men? Why was he with those ice cutters? Why did none of them acknowledge him?
Yeah, I mean, they probably have some sort of like ice lodge. Does he get to sleep there? Or do they like, does he have to have his own tinier one right by?
Yeah, he built his own ice lodge. So he just saw them, idolized them, and was like, this is my life. This is what I want for me. And he just wandered onto their ice cutting business one day. And they were like, we are okay with this, but we're not going to acknowledge you either.
We refuse to believe that this is real.
This is a ghost child.
Out of my head canon. I have a question for you right now. This is unrehearsed, not in your notes. I just thought about this. Mm-hmm. Can Kristoff read? He's not like he's going to school.
Does it ever come up?
I don't know. I'm just thinking about this out loud, right? Like, he doesn't go to school. He starts cutting ice. He's probably like 6.
Yeah. No,
when this is happening.
Not.
So like, you never like.
You need that Tarzan scene where Jane is teaching Tarzan.
Well, I mean, that would be totally just completely, and he doesn't come off as, he comes off as somebody who's bright, quite bright. Yeah. But like, yeah, just go to school, man. Yeah. You've got to be able to go to school.
Go to an orphanage, tell them you don't have parents, and then get enrolled in school. I mean, it's old-timey times, so like this might be one of those times where only rich people had the luxury of being literate. They learned to read and write. I don't know. That's all we have to say about Kristoff,
Yeah,
though.
are we gonna keep talking about the ice cutting song, or are we gonna try and leave it behind?
We're going to try. Do you have anything else you need to say about that?
Maybe not. It's just like, do they sing it every day? Like, is it their ice cutting like work song? Like,
Yes.
I've been working on the railroad. Like,
And Whistle, no, not Whistle While You Work. What's the Seven Dwarfs one? Hi ho, hi ho. It's off to work we go.
Yeah, so
they sing that every time.
do they ever get bored? You know?
Like, sometimes they just sing a little Mariah Carey instead.
Yeah. Well, all right.
I don't know if I could name one Mariah Carey song.
You'd think the guy would have thought of something better than cold, though.
Yeah, I know. That's his part every time is he has to say cold, and he's like, come on, guys. I can think of a thing to say.
Can I say, like, crystalline or something cool?
No, say cold. Everyone needs to know ice cold. We are introducing ice to the viewers here. Viewers don't know what ice is.
That is the point of the song, is introducing ice to the viewers.
I mean, like I said,
And
it really is just setting
Kristoff.
up that foreshadowing.
Beware the frozen heart.
Yeah, introduce Kristoff, beware the frozen heart. It's sloppy. It's a stretch to say that this is their introduction to an important plot element that is being foreshadowed. But yes, we will move on from the ice cutting scene, the first 2 minutes of the movie, to the introduction of little baby Anna and little baby Elsa. They go to use her snow powers or whatever in this big throne room. I don't hate the character of Olaf. We're talking about Olaf here because this is the introduction of his shape.
Oh, right.
Like she creates him for the first time as a snowman.
A non-sentient, non-living snowman.
Right.
A regular snowman.
Yeah, why didn't he come to life then? She hadn't discovered her ice life powers yet. Like, she accidentally made him come to life later. Why didn't she accidentally make him to come to life then?
She was singing at the time. I think that's the difference.
Oh,
you
you
have to be singing about how you're free from the tyranny of your father in order to bring new life into the world.
Okay. So this is going to come up later, but I don't hate the character of Olaf. I actually find Josh Gad endearing in this role. I just genuinely hate his design. The goofiness of the design is clearly meant to sell toys and keep kids interested, but it doesn't fit with the aesthetic of the movie at all.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I find him kind of creepy looking.
They even say it. The characters say it when they first see him. Kristoff literally says, "You're creepy."
And he is.
And
He's
he
right.
is.
But you can't do that. You can't confirm what the audience is saying and then not just change what he looks like.
Exactly.
You have the power to animate him differently.
If you are aware enough of the creepiness of this character to have one of your characters point it out, that means that your character is creepy. And maybe you need to change it. And I think they were referring to the fact that he was headless and still talking and he was a talking snowman, but he looks creepy. And I wish they had made his design more fitting with the aesthetic of the movie. So then Elsa shoots Anna with ice powers. I understand. She slipped on the ice. It happened. Anna's an idiot, whatever. All little kids are in some respect, not in a pejorative way. Just, they haven't figured out life yet.
Yeah, and their motor skills are a little still developing. They just slip and fall more often than adults and whatever.
So, and then Elsa yells for help, and I absolutely find it hilarious that anyone heard her. Maybe a servant would have, but she's in like the middle of this cavernous throne room. The king and queen are likely still asleep, or at the very least in another room, in a castle. There's no way her going, "Mama, Papa," had them instantly busting into the room, fully clothed, like, yeah, what's going on? And then the queen has her one line, "She's ice cold," and then never speaks again.
That's not good.
They were trying to make the main strife between Elsa and her father, and therefore the queen didn't have a role. And again, this is one of the few times I'll bring up the sequel. They tried to fix that in the sequel, like retroactively. They were like, wait, the queen is important. Actually, sorry, we forgot we only gave her one line, but we fixed it now.
Yeah, we never characterized her in any way.
And we made her Evan Rachel Wood. And we made the king Alfred Molina. Do you like us now? Like, no, the king and queen are still quite irrelevant. They're set pieces, and that's fine. Whatever. We'll talk more about the king later.
Not every character has to have like maximum depth or whatever, but like you can't go back and say like, really, the most important person in town was the hot glog distributor, and
we're going to talk about hot glog later.
Glog.
Yeah. So the king said, I know they need to move the movie along, but the king's like, he takes one look at Anna and is like, I know what we have to do and where we have to go. I have a book on it. And he like pulls the book that says like, go to trolls here. And he's like, okay, it's this one. And they ride off into the night. And it's like, well, that was convenient.
Yeah. How does he know? I mean, maybe they talk about that in Frozen 2 because he knows. No.
Nope.
Okay. He apparently knows a bit about these supernatural powers.
Yeah.
But
just a little. Enough to go to trolls about it.
But he's just like, I know what to do. Where to go? I have a book. Sorry, that was really fast.
Yeah, well, I think after hearing me, people are okay with it.
Okay.
So this is my next question. They get to the trolls, and the trolls pop up. Interesting design. We'll talk about it later. And they go, "It's the king," with this reverence. And I'm like, why do the trolls recognize the sovereignty of this human king? I think it doesn't make sense that they would, because he's not their king. I think it would have been cooler if this, instead of being like a mission from a king to his subjects, was a diplomatic mission of one ruler to another. That grandpa troll could be like their ruler. They're like kings acknowledging one another. It's just weird for the trolls to be like, "We serve at the pleasure of his majesty." Like, no, you don't. You're magical rock creatures.
Yeah, the only reason I can think of that you would have that in there is if you were letting the audience know that he was a king.
But we don't.
But we don't need that, because he's obviously like a dude who lives in a castle with a crown and has a throne. That we didn't need the extra. "Oh, it's the king." Like, okay, but they do that in movies sometimes. They're like, "Oh, it's her brother." Like it's just like so that the audience knows what's going on. But that's not the case here.
Yeah. So the troll grandpa says, "Elsa, you must learn to control your powers. Fear will be your enemy." And the king is like, "Okay, got it. Teach her to fear her powers as much as possible and lock her away from humanity and make sure that she's terrified of herself." And I imagine the troll was just like, "No, what? That's the opposite of what I said."
I said learn to control your powers, not suppress them deep in your soul until they come out bursting into song and killing your sister.
Yes. I imagine the king's like already riding off again, like the troll's like calling after him, like, "Wait, you very much misunderstood everything I just said." And the king's like, "What? Can't hear you, riding away. Bye."
Yeah, he gave him a list of things to do, and rather than writing it down, he tried to remember it. And then when he got to the grocery store, he didn't remember what was on the list. And so he's just like, fear, I know, had something to do with fear. Powers are scary. Powers are scary. And geez, that's probably it, right? I'm not going to go back. That's a long way.
Yeah, it's a long ride, and we'd have to get the book out again to find the map. And by then, I'm already back in the castle. I don't want to go out.
It's warm there. It's cold
I skipped
out.
over your favorite line.
Oh, you did.
I'm so sorry. So while they're on their way to the trolls, the horse that Elsa is on is leaving a trail of frozen grass behind it for no particular reason. And Kristoff happens upon this, looks at it, and goes,
"Ice?"
And he follows the trail and gets adopted by trolls. And I don't know, I mean, like, do you want to explain why you find that line so funny, or just move on?
I kind of want to just let it go.
Oh, please. Please tell me you didn't do that on purpose. I have to divorce you now.
Okay.
You guys, we're going to get a divorce real quick, and we will be right back. In the meantime, check out this quick message from my friend who does another podcast called Oof, Right in the Childhood.
When was the last time you watched a Disney movie? No. When did you really watch one of their early movies? My name is Jen. I started rewatching every one of the Disney animated feature films recently, and watching them with a modern eye made me say, "Oof, right in the childhood." Join me every Monday to learn the history behind each of these movies. And then, after I talk about the history and trivia for that movie, I'll summarize and react to my experience watching it as a modern feminist. Every week, you'll learn something, you'll laugh a little, and you'll realize that your Disney-steeped childhood was rife with hidden sexism, racism, classism, ableism, and more. It really will make you say, "Oof," right in the childhood.
All right, so we decided not to go through with the proceedings after all, but I did warn Alan not to make any more Let It Go jokes. Thank you so much for giving us that break to go sort out our marriage, and please do go check out Oof, Right in the Childhood. I am a patron. I love the podcast. It fills me with nostalgia and also analyzes Disney a lot. Here's my catchphrase. We'll jump right back into it. Right back from the commercial break, we're going to issue a trigger warning. We cannot let the king's abuse lie. So, trigger warning for mental and emotional abuse. We're going to talk about that for a couple minutes. You can use that skip forward button. We're going to talk about how to build a snowman. This is not How to Train Your Dragon. How to Build a Snowman, the How to Train Your Dragon Frozen crossover. We're going to talk about Do You Want to Build a Snowman next. So when you start hearing us talking about that song, you know we're past it, okay? So we were laughing about the king and his misunderstanding of the troll. Now it's time to be serious for a second. What he does to Elsa is abusive.
Yes.
And Anna, in a way. I mean, he separates the sisters.
He separates the sisters, and, they're Well, we have to talk a little bit about the choice of the troll removing the memories of, or altering the memories of Anna, which is super creepy. And it, like that they have those powers, and also like, oh, I'll remove the memories but leave the fun. But like you're still opening someone's brain and tinkering around in there, and then never telling Anna about the powers serves what purpose exactly?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's supposed to keep her safe, but obviously, as we see, it does not. And it's just bad decisions all around. Absolutely. And not to plug too much for myself or this episode, but I do have a book called Hellbound coming out soon. And I do actually address this issue of, you know, erasing somebody's memories without their permission being kind of an act of violation. So anyway, the king, though, basically teaches Elsa to fear herself and close herself off, and she's not allowed to feel emotions. And this is never, this would have been fine for character growth if they'd acknowledged it. I wish that Elsa's character growth moment would have been to realize that in retrospect, she should not have idolized her father as much as she did, and he hurt her, and he caused a lot of pain and strife in their family. But they still, and this is another part where the sequel is going to come up, they still idolize him to the point where in the sequel, they're all lovey-dovey towards him, like, oh, father, you're so good to us. And he's not.
Yeah.
In Frozen.
I mean, this was, I mean, it was required for the plot in order for the thing, but basically, you can't make a movie about a person who has develops their powers naturally, learns to control them, and sees the beauty in it and removes the fear, because then it's just, there's no drama, right? That's just like the right thing to do. But like they don't, this is the wrong decision by her father, and it's abusive. And they don't address that ever. They just like, well, he did his best and he died in a lake.
He died in an ocean or a lake or whatever. It doesn't matter. They died in a song, which we're going to get to now. So if you were skipping forward to get past the yucky bits, we are done now. We're going to talk about the time jump mechanism of Do You Want to Build a Snowman, which I liked. Oh, I forgot. One of the reasons I chose to do this movie, Warren, our son, if this is your first episode, this was the first movie that he loved. We couldn't get him to watch anything else. He was like 2 years old and sitting in his high chair, and Frozen was on in the background, and he was transfixed. And we tried to get him to watch Little Mermaid and Aladdin, none of it, right? On top of that, I like Frozen 1. I like Frozen 1 a lot. I do. Do I have some nitpicks? You can tell I do. I actually have nitpicks for every movie I like. As I always say, you can enjoy something and critique it at the same time. But I thought that it would be nice to have some positivity for once. And we didn't know if we could talk about Puff and Rock for more than 5 minutes because we love that show. So we would have just been like, Puff and Rock is good. Go watch it. It's on Netflix. So we're talking about Frozen for that reason.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I still want to talk about Puff and Rock sometime.
We will eventually.
Well,
yes.
maybe it'll be a mini episode or something.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of time, or like gets released on Christmas or something.
I just rearranged our patron perks actually to include bonus content, because with Warren and Ari and everything like that and my full-time job, I realized that it was not practical for me to try to release episodes early. So instead of doing that, we're releasing ad-free content, which means that you might have not heard an ad if you're listening to this on Patreon, and also bonus content like my podcast, but also we could just talk about Puff and Rock. So we're going to be positive about this. I know that you're like lukewarm on Frozen, but let's face it, you're not exactly the target audience.
No, I am not. But it's fine. I like some of the songs. I like some of the arts. I like, The
basic fact is you're going to hear some positivity from me. And one of the things is that I like the mechanism of the Do You Want to Build a Snowman song as a time jump mechanism. But it is unclear, and I know I'm not the only one confused about this because other people have talked about it in some way. I don't remember, but other people have talked about it. There are two things that are unclear. One, how often after the king separates the sisters do they see one another? At first I thought, does Elsa never leave her room because she doesn't go to the funeral and it's all frozen over and whatever, but she's there to see off the king and queen when they leave for their fateful death journey. And so she does leave her room. So it's unclear how much they see each other because they act very, very weird around each other when they finally do see each other at the party. The other thing that is unclear is how much freedom Anna has to just leave. Because she acts like she's cooped up and has not seen other people, and she's awkward about it. I mean, basically, she's me in college. I was so awkward and unable to interact socially and party and whatever. But if she doesn't have ice powers, and she doesn't even know about them thanks to Troll McTrollerson. So there's no danger in her accidentally letting people know about it because she doesn't know about them. So why can't she just go out and about?
Why doesn't she go to school?
Yeah.
I mean, she probably has tutors come in or whatever, but yeah, why doesn't she just have like a bunch of friends?
And then again, when they are opening the gates, she goes and runs around town like just for funsies. So how often is she leaving and seeing other people, or is she just somehow trapped for no reason? And then how often is she seeing Elsa? Are they seeing each other at all? Is it in passing? Are they being purposely kept isolated from one another? It is unclear. The king says in his voiceover, we'll keep her separated from everyone, including Anna. But what did he mean by that? Did he mean they will not be able to see one another? Or it's unclear to me. And I don't think we can really answer that because it's too unclear in the film. But I wanted to point out that it leaves questions for me.
Yeah, it's confusing to me too, because if they don't have any contact with one another, I don't care how good your friendship was with somebody when you were 6 years old. If you haven't seen them in 10 years, you just sort of forget about them. She wouldn't be like knocking on her door like, oh, let's build a snowman like we did when we were 6. I mean, that's a little thirsty. I mean, like...
Thirsty means something different, dear.
I think it can mean that too.
Sure. On top of that, the whole plot of the movie is centered around these sisters' deep and unabiding love for one another, which isn't believable if they haven't seen each other in 15 or 20 years.
Yeah. Every couple months, she knocks on the door and then she says, go away, Anna. And then like, oh, they love each other.
Yeah, to the point where in the final part of the montage, she pauses by the door and says, never mind, like I'm not even going to try, because she's learned better. She's learned not to try to engage her sister. So where is that deep love coming from? One childhood memory? I don't believe it, really.
Yeah, this is really hard to know like what their actual relationship is supposed to be. And yeah, they want us to have it both ways. They want us to say they love each other so very, very much, but they are completely isolated from one another and they haven't spoken in 10 years.
Yes, and then here's another positive. It's Coronation Day, and the little boy is like, why do I have to wear this suit, Mom? And his mom is like, it's Coronation Day. And he says, that's not my fault. And that's a funny line.
Yes, that is a funny line.
And that's all I have to say about that. I laughed a lot in this movie. I thought it was funny.
The Reindeers Are Better Than People song. Love that song.
It's a great song, except he says reindeers, and we're going to get to that. But yeah, and then I just have to say, like, somebody go check on Alan Tudyk, because I'm pretty sure that Disney has him locked in a basement somewhere. I became certain of that when he voiced the chicken in Moana. Like they've captured him, and we should probably check on him. The next point is so little, but during the song where Anna is singing for the first time in forever, there is a line that is clearly pandering to the audience, pushing for laughs, where she says, I don't know if I'm elated or gassy, but I'm somewhere in that zone. And I don't like that line, because they're just like, look how adorable she is, but also she knows she's elated. The whole song is about how elated she is. So to have her turn around and be like, I don't know if I'm elated, it's not genuine. She is, absolutely and undeniably. That's what she's singing about.
I have never personally confused gas with elation myself.
Right, but you're not a princess.
Oh, that's true. Princesses have very elatable gas.
That's just a line that bothered me. And then the gown bit. So she's still singing this song, and she is fantasizing like college me did about one day having a boyfriend. And she says, imagine me tonight, gown and all. And she wraps herself in the curtain as if she is pretending that she's wearing a new dress that she's going to be wearing later, a gown that is beautiful and alluring to a potential mate. And then she's just in the same dress later.
She's already in her coronation dress.
Yeah. So there's no imagination happening. Imagine me tonight in the dress that I'm in. That's not hard to imagine, because I'm in the dress already. I'm in that dress. So that line bothers me.
Yeah.
She like wraps herself in a different material.
And like, look how I could look.
but I won't.
But I won't. I look like this.
I look like this because I'm wearing this dress. So that's a weird line as well. These people won an Oscar.
Yeah, well, I mean, she probably shouldn't have put it on so early in the day.
Probably not. She was going to do a lot of running around. She's going to get very sweaty.
Yeah.
It nearly fell into a lake. A fjord.
She almost fell off a fjord.
Yeah. And
she's just going to get mud on it.
I'm wondering if this is a case of the lyrics being written without consulting the story, if that makes sense. So they just wrote the lyrics and it involved her imagining being in a pretty dress, but then they didn't know when they wrote the lyrics that she was already going to be in the pretty dress, and they just kind of, I don't know. I don't know the order of these things. When does animation happen? When does voice acting happen? When does long Syrinx happening? That was a fun spoonerism.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave it in, too.
Yeah, it's a song.
Long Syrinx.
Long Syrinx.
So that's that. I will say this. Anna's naivete is genuine. I love the way she's performed. She honestly made me like Kristen Bell, and then The Good Place made me like her more. She seems fine. But yeah, I think her acting is genuine, and I think that the writing overall, except for like the elated gassy line, is really good. This is probably too personal for a comedy podcast, but I have experienced being so wrapped up in a fantasy based on what I think that life could be like or romance could be like, that I can't see the reality. And it's caused me some problems in life. I think it just kind of made me sheltered and too immature at an age where most people are reaching maturity mentally. And so I totally get it. It's very genuine, and I think that it's really relatable to me. I find Anna to be a very relatable character.
Yeah, they did a good job with that a little. I mean, she, quote, falls in love right away because that's what she wishes to have happen. So, of course, kind of just makes it happen. And then when they kind of, the one thing I don't like about it is when she's getting called on it by Kristoff, she's just doing it again. She's just falling in love with a guy in one day again.
Yeah, I have a note on this, but since you brought it up, I will say I know the movie didn't have time for this, but there's a couple things they would have had to do to have Anna actually learn her lesson. Not her lesson. That sounds like she needs to be punished. No, I mean like learn a lesson. One is she would have had to journey with Kristoff for many days and fall in love with him naturally over time, as is the quote right way. The other is I was genuinely hoping that Hans was not going to be evil, because it would mean so much more thematically if Anna chose Kristoff over Hans in the end. If she realized that the true love she thought she had really was a fabrication, and she truly loves the guy that she got to know and spent time with. And so she breaks Hans's heart and goes with Kristoff. Like, that's what I wanted to see.
When I was first watching this movie, I remember this, I thought it was going to be very heteronormative, and there were two guys and two sisters. And so I thought Hans was going to be okay. Like, he was going to be an okay dude. I thought that was going to be the twist, is that there really wasn't a villain. It was just the sisters' relationship.
Well, they set up the Duke, right, as the villain.
Yeah, but he was more annoying than a villain.
Sure, but I saw it as the kind of typical Disney formula of, we have set up the villain right here. You know who they are. This is not something we are obscuring in any way. This is the villain. It would have made sense.
So what I was hoping is that Anna would go on this adventure with Kristoff and learn and just take a step back, and you're like, you know what? I don't really know this guy very much, but I'm willing to figure it out, and I'm willing to go slow. And I was thinking, well, Kristoff loves ice so much that he's going to be like immediately like, ice princess? This is amazing. Like,
yeah, and then they would pair off and everything would be happy.
Well, yeah, Midsummer Night's Dream or whatever, but
that didn't happen.
That didn't happen. And I'm cool. I'm definitely cool with no dude for Queen Elsa.
Yes.
And, I'd be probably even better with no dude for anybody.
That was one of the worries I had for the sequel, that they were going to kind of shoehorn in a love interest for Elsa. They didn't do that. That's like one point in their favor. I will say that just think about the impact of the ending when the decision to leave Hans is made for her, rather than her demonstrating growth and choosing to leave him. So that's that. And when we get to those bullet points later, I will just gloss over them. That's, I'm tired of saying we'll get to it. That's a really annoying catchphrase that I'm hoping to do away with. Next, I'm going to try to stop saying like so much, but the Valley Girl in me just doesn't know how to quit. So that's fun. So Hans runs into her. This is part one of his plan. It's like hang out on his horse until Anna runs by and then run into her with the horse. That was definitely part one of his plan. He knew that was going to happen. And
he knew she was going to be singing about how much she wanted to fall in love that night.
Yeah.
Outside.
Later he says Elsa was preferable, but nobody was getting anywhere with her. Who told you that? How did you know? Elsa was cut off from everyone. When were people trying to get somewhere with her?
Yeah, I don't think we ever saw them talk to each other.
No, he didn't even try.
He just know he walked up and was like, hey, they're good looking. She was like, ooh.
Yeah. So anyway, so he enacts part one of his plan, which is running into her with his horse. And the horse is sentient, which is fine because they are tied into the Tangled universe supposedly, and the horse was super sentient in that one, except that Anna's horse later is not. It spooks and leaves her there to die in the cold. So you can't have sentient horses sometimes. You either have sentient horses or you don't. I say sentient a lot on this podcast.
Were the wolves sentient or no? So
yeah. And yeah, so they also pick and choose which animals are aware. I'm going to say aware for a while, so I don't keep saying
Sven is aware.
Sven is aware. The horse is mildly aware. Anna's horse isn't at all. The wolves aren't as all. Wolves are at all. I think I said as all. Sorry. Wolves are perpetual Disney villains. Disney hates wolves so much. Just think about like the bloodthirsty wolves in Beauty and the Beast, and just they're like, we want to kill for killing's sake. It's like Captain Planet villain saying we want to pollute for pollution's sake. We just
love toxic sludge.
We love polluting. We don't even have to create this sludge. We're doing it on purpose.
We're doing it just for fun.
Yeah. Let's end on a positive note for this episode. The animation is so good in this movie. There's a couple of things that I have problems with. Like the trolls don't look like rocks, and I feel like it's probably because they had to animate so many of them. I understand that that's a tough job. They're a little cartoonier than the rest of the movie, but the way that the chain moves when Anna bumps into that pole, it like swings gently. Like they clearly studied snow and ice effects and everything. The animation is so good. The only other thing that bothers me is the teeth. They pulled back on that later. Like they figured out that they were making the teeth a little too noticeable. And if you can't stop noticing the teeth now when you rewatch this movie, I'm sorry, that's my bad. But they are really noticeable to me. Next week, we will conclude with our talk on Frozen. Please let us know what you think. We would love to hear from you on social media. We are at Not Again Pod. If you would like some podcast reviews, I do those week daily at Bexgoose. That's BEXGOOS. There are a ton of relevant links on how to support us and find us. They are all in the description of this episode, so I'm not going to bore you with the details of them this time. Don't forget to check out Oof Right in the Childhood. And thank you for helping us to maintain our marbles for one more week. Thank you very much for coming back to listen with us. Thank you to Alan for composing the theme music for this show. We will catch you next time. I'm Rebecca.
I'm Alan.
Bye, friends.
Bye.